You are hanging out with the Monkey, the official podcast of OddsMonkey, the #1 match betting service in the world. Thank you to everyone again for listening to us. It's great to have all the regular listeners back on board, and for any newbies, it's great to have you as well. We hope to give you a nice few tips in the coming episode, and we can point you in the right direction, especially when it comes to match betting. And again, we have a little treat for all the podcast listeners. We know a few of you have already taken us up on this offer, but for anyone who wants to try OddsMonkey in full for just £1 for 10 days, you can sign up with the offer code PODOFFER. That's PODOFFER, and that'll give you OddsMonkey Premium for 10 days. And so when we're talking throughout the podcast, you hear little features. Please give it a go. We think you'll enjoy it. So joining me again today, we are delighted to welcome back Ricky from OddsMonkey.
Hiya.
And Phil from Tricky Bet.
Hello.
So today's episode, where summer really is kicking in. We're looking at Wimbledon and everything it has to offer. And then we're going to have a quick look at the Cricket World Cup, which is ongoing, and the Women's World Cup as well, where England are still fighting to get to the final. So let's have a look at Wimbledon first off. We begin on July the 1st, I think it is. And Rick, there are a few offers here. We're quite excited by Wimbledon. And where are we starting with the offers, Rick?
Yeah, there's a few appearing at the minute. Hopefully there'll be a few more as well before the tournament starts. But a guaranteed profit offer from William Hill at the minute, where you can place a £10 win or a £5 each way bet on the men's outright singles, and you'll get a £10 free bet then to use on any other Wimbledon market. So, you should be able to lock in around £7 plus on that is guaranteed profit. Additionally, one that's a little bit of an outside bet, but if you do happen to fancy Johanna Konta, Star Sports are offering a £25 refund if Konta does happen to reach the final. So you can place a £25 bet on the outright ladies singles, and if Konta does get to the final, you'll get your money back as a free bet, I think. So it's two different offers there, one guaranteed and one relying on Konta doing well.
But that's a great offer, the Konta one, isn't it, Rick? Because obviously, if you're going to be backing someone anyway, you should utilise that one, shouldn't you? Because even if you don't fancy Konta, you can back the one who, say, Serena Williams, and then you can still be cheering Konta on because you're going to get your money back. So it's quite appealing, that one, isn't it?
Yeah, it just gives you an extra interest as well, and you get an extra chance there of getting your money back if your selection doesn't perform. So yeah.
And she obviously is amongst the favourites. We will come to our picks later. She had a very good time in Paris going up in the semis, but we'll come to all our picks in a minute. And Phil, obviously, our favourite subject of them all is the rules when it comes to tennis, and it does differ, doesn't it? So we're not going to apologise for going over this. We know it is on the forums, it is in the guides, but give us a quick rundown again, Phil, of how tennis is impacted by the rules.
Yeah, so the exchanges don't always have the same retirement rules as the bookmakers. So if there's retirement in the game, you could potentially lose both your bets, if you've backed them late as normal at an exchange. So on OddsMonkey, they've got a full list of which bookmakers match the exchange. So if they match the exchange, you can go ahead and back and lay as normal. But if they don't, then you will have to Dutch your bets. And that means you are going to back one player, the bookie in question, and then back the other player, another bookie. And again, there's tools for that on OddsMonkey. It's a little bit more complicated, but you need to do it. Otherwise, you could potentially, potentially lose out big time, because there are a lot of retirements in tennis. So yeah, but all the info is on the tennis matcher, underneath the tennis matcher on OddsMonkey.
Yeah, it's always great tips, guys. Please look at the forum, and Ricky and the guys are there to help. We will be pushing on and looking at our picks. But again, just a little reminder as well for Wimbledon this year, we've got the roof over court #1, so you won't be losing out when it comes to betting. There won't be many delays, so we may even see less injuries this year, because you do often get that when they run into 2 days because of the weather. So let's look at our picks, guys. Are we done there for the office, Phil? Nothing else to go on? There was an offer, wasn't there? Very close to 365 2-up offer.
Well, we're still hoping that'll be announced. I've been looking at last year's Wimbledon offers, and we did have 2-up on that, and quite a lot more offers going on than we have so far this year. But come on, have an offer. It's not as good as 2-up, but it's similar. So if you go 2 sets and a break up and then go on to lose, you'll get refunded as a free bet. So they're not paying you out as a winner, but you do need a full turnaround on that. And they also have a couple of other like first set insurance. If you back a player and he wins the first set but loses the match, you'll get 50% of your stake as a free bet, and they have a fifth set tiebreak refund as well. So that's worth looking into, because there's a lot of these things that do happen. And the other one was Paddy Power, £10 refund if your pick fails to reach the quarterfinals. So that's on the men's and women's. So it's just an easy one you can do.
Cool. So as I said, check the daily offers calendar on the site, and you'll get all the Wimbledon offers leading up to the start of the tournament and throughout as well. So let's get round to our picks, guys. The women. Let's do the women first. A wide open market here. Ashley Barty, the defending champion from France, is the favourite of 4-1 roughly, and then Serena is right up there as well. I'll have first bash here. I don't know much about the women's side. I'll probably bottle it and go for Barty and Serena. Serena trying to get her 24th Grand Slam, which would make her equal the greatest tennis player of all time with Margaret Court. Phil, I know you don't love to back a favourite, but this is a wide open field. This one, would you be looking much past Serena?
No, I always pick Serena because, I don't know much about women's tennis either, but she's always up for Wimbledon, and like you say, she's got that extra incentive to become the best ever.
She hasn't won since having a baby, though. Is that a concern?
I suppose it is a little bit, yeah. Maybe she's not back to full fitness, or maybe just she's not that bothered anymore. It's hard to say, but you're not going to back against her, are you?
No, a game. If a game suits anyway, it's Wimbledon, isn't it? And Rick, you chose the winner here last year, so the pressure is on you here. And you've got a couple of interesting picks, haven't you?
I've got one. I was looking at, obviously, towards the top end of the market, and I've got one at looks like a massive price, purely based on the fact that she beat Barty last year, got to the quarterfinals. Daria Kasatkina is as low as 33-1 in places, but a massive 150-1 in 2 places a minute. Just find out what bookies they are. You can get 150-1 with Boyle Sports and SpreadX. And I say purely on the basis that she beat Barty last year in the quarterfinal, and Barty's favourite. That's worth a little bit each way there to hopefully progress a bit further in the tournament. And odds have surely got to come down as she does.
That's a great pick, Rick. I think I'll be following you there. Because obviously Wimbledon, again, it's very different to Paris, isn't it? Although Barty's coming as favourite, just because you win in France doesn't automatically mean you're going to win in Wimbledon, does it? So that's a really interesting one, that, Rick. And obviously none of us are picking Johanna Konta, the British girl we did talk about before. She's around 16s, but you can get 22s. In Boyle Sports seem to be very, very generous this year. They're offering 22s on Konta at the minute. So that's an interesting one. And there's a few ones in the Rick, like for big guns against the field, etc. We've got Barty and Williams, 28-15, or 2-5 the field. That looks pretty generous. So let's move on to the men's. Obviously, it doesn't seem to change from year on year here. We could probably replay us from last year and we'd be talking about the same players. We've got defending champion Djokovic, the favourite. Good old Roger Federer, the greatest male player of all times on titles, and the Paris champion, King of Clay, Rafa Nadal at 6s. And then after that, you can take your pick, really. So, Ricky, give you first go on the men's. Those top 3 are very strong, aren't they? But is Rafa at 6s not a bad price? Because he wasn't really pushed in Paris too much, was he? So he should be coming in fairly fit.
Yeah, although he can't really fault him. He's not got the greatest record at Wimbledon. I think it's been quite a few years now since he's won. And I'm just, again, looking further down the field, you've got the likes of, I think, John Isner, who's done well previously, the massive servers, who's 150-1. Kevin Anderson, who got really far last year, 6-1. But I like the Djokovic Federer against the field, where you got the rest of the field, playing for you, 6-4. Paddy Power offering that, so anyone other than Djokovic, Federer to win. I think that's where I'll be looking at putting the money down with.
Interesting. We've got the aces as well. John Isner, as Ricky mentioned, he's 4-1 to have the most tournament aces. Raonic is the favourite there at 9-4. Always a very interesting market. Ricky, Phil, are you opposing the big boys here, or I know Djokovic has been your pick before. He seems to be aiming for Wimbledon at the moment, doesn't he? It's hard to look past him, even at 6-4.
It is, and grass is one of them surfaces where the odds are like this because the same players come back each year and do really well because they've just got it. Like Djokovic has just got grass nailed, and he's really odds on to win. It's hard to look past him. I like what Ricky said though. If Nadal's included outside of that, that's a really good bet. But because of that, there's some great value. Because the top 3 or 4 are such low odds, there's some great value in the field for if you know your tennis, like Dominic Thiem and Marin Cilic and stuff. You can get like 40-1 on them. They're not going to win the tournament, but they're going to go far in the tournament. So you can back them and like trade out with them after a couple of rounds. I like to do things like that. Tennis is really good for trading. Actually, if anybody's interested in getting into trading, but that's a different conversation. But yeah, I can't really see past Djokovic for the title, to be honest.
Yeah, it's hard, isn't it? I must admit, I think Nadal would get my money, but I think you can get 66s on Kevin Anderson in places with Unibet particularly, and 888. He's 33, but you can get 66s. I think he will go very deep into the second week as one of the favourites. So there's our picks for Wimbledon. Please, as we said, read the offers very carefully. There is a few rules that you need to be aware of there, so please do take that into account. And obviously, there are 2 World Cups going on at the minute, the cricket and the women's football. But let's have a quick look at the cricket. And guys, it's not looking good for England, is it? I don't think many of us thought England were particularly good value at the start of the tournament. They were very, very short. And they're still third favourites at the minute, despite the fact they need to beat India and New Zealand in the last 2 at 7-2, 17-4. Ricky, I don't think you'd be looking towards England, would you?
I'm going to flip that. I mean, I did fancy England at the start, and I still think they've got a very strong batting lineup. And I think the drifting odds down to 9-2. They've got 2 tough games on paper. There is a slight chance that 1 victory might still be enough to get into that top 4. So yeah, I still think that I'll still be going in at 9-2 England at the minute.
Oh, very patriotic there, Rick. I must admit, I don't agree with that. I think Pakistan are very good options at 10-1, and Australia, we mentioned them before. I always thought, even when we discussed it last time, I thought the Australia double of World Cup and the Ashes was extremely good value, and it's looking that way now. And I still think Australia are the team to beat. And Phil, looking back at some of the offers we've had, there's one particular Australia one, wasn't it? And one that, looking back, he would have paid out quite considerably so far.
Yeah, so Paddy have been doing an offer that if you basically get a £10 refund if Warner scores 50 plus. So you need to pick your top run scorer for the game. So you back and lay that. You could pick anybody. It doesn't matter who you pick. But if David Warner scored 50 or more, they would give you a £10 free bet. And we looked at this, didn't we? And he's 5 times out of the 7 games they've played so far that this is actually, you could have had £50 in free bets there. And there's a couple more to go. New Zealand on Saturday, and there's another match as well. So there's still
South Africa,
yeah, there's still 2 good opportunities to get on that and get yourself a refund. And
they'll probably keep it going for the semi and the final as well. So even and because he opens, he's always getting the bat. You could get another 40 quid on that. So it's fantastic. He's really in good form, isn't he? So that's what I'll look out for as well. And again, the daily offers are there for the cricket. Please look out there. There's a few decent ones out there for that. And looking to the other World Cup at the minute, it's a Women's World Cup. We're all cheering the Lionesses on. I must admit, I don't know if you guys have been watching. I think it hasn't been great entertainment for me, especially watching England. I think they've been pretty ropey at times. And the England's odds here have gone out a little bit. 7s at the minute. Rick, I don't know if you've been watching the Lionesses too much, but I can't see past USA here. 13-8, 6-4. I think you'd be crazy to back anyone else but them. But are you crazy enough to back against USA, Rick?
Crazy might be a bit strong. Yeah, they are looking, probably one of the strongest teams there, and they were pre-tournament. But just looking at the other half of the ball, Netherlands beat what I thought was a good Japan team, and they're 12-1, and they're avoiding the likes of USA, France, and England on their half. So perhaps Netherlands could get and Germany in that half is at the top, the top of the betting also, but they've got an easier half of the draw to get to the final. So 12-1 may be a bit big on them to then look at trade out if they get to the final.
Yeah, and Phil, I know you've been impressed by the Americans so far. Do you think England got a chance of getting past them to the final?
No, not really. Like we were saying, America's just a class above everybody else from what we've seen. Anything can happen in these games. It's I don't know. It's so different from men's football. It is quite hard to predict sometimes what's going to happen. But the USA do look like a different class. So yeah, not for me.
No, so there we go, guys. Thanks again for joining us. We're going to be having another podcast at the start of July. We'll be covering the Open. We'll be covering the British Grand Prix. We might throw a bit of Goodwood in there as well. And we'll probably do a bit of transfer talk by then because hopefully the Premier League clubs will have kicked into gear. I know big Liverpool fan Rick, we haven't seen too much in transfer market so far. I think La Liga has got the Premier League running scared at the moment, isn't it?
I don't think there'll be much going on. By all accounts, that the talk coming out of Liverpool at the minute, it's going to be a very quiet period. But hopefully there'll be one or two that that come through in the end. But I don't think there'll be any major spending from Liverpool this summer. You
don't fancy Coutinho back with all this Barcelona thing, Rick?
Not at the price they'll be prepared to pay for him, though.
Well, we'll see. Yeah, we'll have a little delve into transfers because by then there should be some other big ones done, Griezmann, etc. And we'll keep an eye on Neymar as well. But yeah, so thanks for joining us again today, guys. But let me remind you of our offer again. Anyone who wants to try OddsMonkey Premium, it really is worth it. Loads of great tools in there for you to use. Just sign up with the pod offer. That's POD or FFEI at the checkout. And you get 10 full days of OddsMonkey Premium for just £1. So it really is worth it. So again, thanks for joining us again, guys, and we'll catch you again next month.